My clothes need to be ironed. I'm pretty sure at least one of these cameras not in focus, and my fade is not hitting. Well, let's do it.
You gotta motivate yourself, man. Who else gonna do it?
I'm William Strother, aka Stro Stylez, and I would like to welcome you to my new show, No Backup Plan, presented by Stro Studios. Now, I don't really got too much of an intro we just getting started, so we just gonna kick straight into it. I used to try and do a show or something like these, and it would work. Sometimes they wouldn't, because to be honest, I would be drunk as hell. So at some point I would just think I killed it, think I smoked it. And I would watch back the tape and I'm like, I'm slurring my words. I can't get through it. I'm looking like I'm falling asleep. It wasn't working. And I thought to be on camera like this, to just to get it off, you need to have a little sip in me. And when I watched back, clearly that did not work. So I ain't really want to start like this, but the best way to start is with transparency and honesty. So I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking weed. And that, for me, like I'm sure for a lot of people, that was a big thing. I was smoking, I was getting high. I don't like to say getting high. That sounds like I was hitting the pipe. I was smoking for a long time, a lot. And drinking probably way more than you should. And just at a certain point, I realized I knew that I needed to cut it out. I needed to just remove it completely. Because, to get to this next place that I wanted to get to with Stro Studios and everything, something had to change. I'd be sitting down here some nights and working on stuff for me or a client project, stuff I got to edit, whatever. And it's like, it's late or it's getting later and I'm trying to catch a zone. I'm like, you know what? Let me pour some up. And usually when you pour some up, be like, all right, let me roll some up. And then before I know it, I'm waking up at my desk at 4 or 5 in the morning because I done fell asleep. Nothing done. And that has happened way too many times for me to not do something and address it in some way. So I said, you know what? I know where I want to get to. I know what I want to do. And I know that maybe a big part of it happening is just changing this thing that I do too much. And you don't want to feel like it has a hold on you, it has a grip on you. But then as you start to pull away from it, as you pull away from it completely, you realize how much it was consuming me. And when I was younger, my dad said, he told me, you got to stop because you got a gift and you're going to lose your gift. And obviously, you think you're doing your thing and you're like, man, whatever, you blow it off. And maybe I didn't lose the talent completely, but I wasn't using it, not using it the right way. So I might as well have been losing it. And the moment that I stopped, the day I just said, you know what, I'm cutting it off. This is over. Business started booming. I mean, just hitting off the rip. And then I'm like, could this have been happening the whole time? If I had cut this out years ago, would I be way further in my career? And, the relationship with my wife started getting better and things with my kids. And I was able to now kind of start to live healthier, working out, eating healthier, taking my vitamins, just focus dialed in. And I started getting to a point of like, all right, like what else am I going to remove? What else am I going to add into my new regime? And it's made things so much clearer, so much better. And like I said, the business is where it needs to be now. I couldn't be up like this at 2, 3 in the morning, actually being productive like this before. I'd be too damn high. And I'm grateful for the people that support me, that have supported me and still continue to support me to get on this journey. I always say to my homies that I'm blessed, and blessed just from the standpoint of like, I just have y'all. Like, I don't surround myself with a whole bunch of people that I don't got to worry about like phony friends or fake friends too much, because the people that's with me is the people that have been with me since 7th, 8th grade, and even a little bit before that. Same guys. So I didn't necessarily want to start like that, but I just think that's the best way to get into it, is with transparency and with honesty. And the other honesty is like, people have always told me, maybe you should do a podcast or do a show. And people approach me of like, hey, yo, can we do something together? And honestly, I've never been with it. And I'm trying to think of a better way to say this, because I'm getting better and stronger in my word and my faith. But to be honest, I don't have a better way to say it right now. So I'm going to just say it. I don't believe in people like that, because really they don't believe in themselves. They'll come to you with an idea and they'll want to get it started and want to get it going. And then I'm the type of person that when I do it, I'm going to do it right. That's just something that my grandmother taught me, if it ain't going to be right, I ain't going to be involved. And a lot of times people want you to do something, want you to help them start some, but then you might be the person that's going to end up putting in more work into it than them. And this was their idea. And I come from music. So in music, I learned to do it all, and I learned to do it all by myself. And a lot of times I'd be working with people that I will put in more than they will put in. And eventually, as I started to kind of transition out of music, I realized that, and it just pissed me off. Because one, you putting in all your time and work into something that someone else says they want to do, but then really not doing it. And then also, I said I don't believe in people, but because they don't believe in themselves. But at the same time, I see potential in so many people and things they could do, and they get slowed down and they get distracted. And like I said, if I'm doing something, I'm a go. And that just, it irks me. So like I say to my cousin all the time, when I say to him, and he knows this, I always say, like, when people approach me with something, I say, yo, you get it started, and then I'll come in and do what I can where I can. And 9 times out of 10, I'll circle back with them and everything, and they won't get it started. And even more so to the point of like, yo, I'll tell them what they need to do to start it and how to start it. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant on it of like, I know the landscape of everything, but like I know how to get an idea at least started, how to get the ball rolling. So if you coming to me, I'm not just going to jump on with you. I'm going to say, yo, this is what you need to do to get it started. And then they don't even do that. So it's like, why do things with people? And that's a big reason of probably why I won't have a co-host on this. Maybe eventually I will, maybe I won't, but it's because I don't like relying on other people. Having to rely on other people is just, it's going to slow me down. It's going to waste time. And I know that like in this business and this creative space and anything, you need to have other people that you can work with. But for me, it's just always worked better of like, all right, I'm going to do it my own. I'm going to do it myself. When I was originally toying with ideas of doing a show before, it was going to be called When I Feel Like It. And that's just because I wanted to call it that, kind of it wouldn't lock me into something. And I think really why I didn't end up going with that name ultimately is because of, words have power. And saying something of like, I'm going to do it when I feel like it is just that. And if I'm doing something, I want it to be consistent. I want it to go. I want it to work and not just be whimsical and whatever. So I think this new show, this new idea, this new everything of No Backup Plan is exactly that, is this and nothing else. But there's also the other side where it's like, I never really wanted to do a podcast. I tried it with my cousin before, that same cousin that I'm talking about, shout out Aunt. And then we did it, and it still got the 10th episode that we never really watched because we was sitting there drinking and just it didn't flow, and this is like 2018 when it was still early, and we thought, all right, yo, like we have we have great conversation between us. So why can't we just turn on the cameras and then it just snap? And it does not work like that. You turn on them cameras and you freeze up. You get quiet. You forget everything you was going to say, all your charisma and jokes and everything. They just it's gone. Or you're just saying a lot of things that you don't want to say on camera. And now you're just sitting there kind of snickering and giggling and having inside jokes between each other across the table. And it's not good content for other people to watch, and it has no substance. But I have always wanted to have my own platform, outside of what I do in videos and everything and the story that I'm trying to tell there. I've always just wanted to be able to sit down and control my own narrative and control what I want to put out there. And for me to do something like that, to do something like this, is very interesting, very freeing, but it shows me of like how far I've just come as an individual. I grew up with a stutter, like stuttering every other second. When it was time for class projects, I would find every way to get out of it and to not have to present, and you would do popcorn read in the classroom and everything. I would ask the teachers if I couldn't do it, if I didn't have to do it. And I didn't like to speak in front of people. But when I got behind that microphone, anytime I grabbed a microphone, even in front of people, it would go away. Wouldn't be there. And it baffled me that this kid that couldn't even read 2 sentences or still sometimes can barely pick up the phone to say hello without stuttering can get in a platform of where there's cameras and there's an audience, and it just all goes away. And I think that speaks a little bit back to what I was saying earlier about my dad telling me about my gift. It's just, sometimes you have a gift. I was reading the Bible with my wife earlier, and I was reading it. I like to read it because I used to be that kid that just couldn't do anything without stuttering. And I was reading it, and I said to her, I like to do this because of, I couldn't always do it. And she was like, you don't really stutter anymore. I don't hear it from you as much anymore. And I notice when I do it, so I know that I still do. But it's part of that journey for me of like, I never really thought I would be an orator and anxious and willing to be speaking in front of people, and beyond just these cameras or anything, to speak in front of people on stages and just not rapping and rhyming, but telling my story, giving my testimony. And a big part of who I am now, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Like I've been saying, growing heavier in my word. I run the AV ministry at Third Baptist Church and just getting heavier into that place. But like I said, I come from music. So, I've been doing music since I was about 7 years old, and it started with wanting to rap and rhyme. And then like, it's not like now where you can just go online and grab some beats. In 2003, you had to figure out how to make something work. And especially when you're young and you just don't got really my parents always supported me, so whatever I needed, they would give for me. But like the technology wasn't there yet. So I had to figure it out. I started on karaoke machines, recording my first mixtape on a literal tape and taking the other microphone from the karaoke machine and putting it next to this little beat box that I got just so I could have beats on there, and figuring it out from there. And then as I got older, got the first MacBook. And once I got that, I was flying. I could started with GarageBand and quickly moved to Logic and make my own beats. And then it's like, okay, I can record the song, I can make the beat. Now I got to make it sound good. And I started learning how to mix and master and engineer. And then that's when the video stuff started to come in, where you have this great product, but still you need to show people. So started learning how to film my own videos just by myself. And eventually I would have someone to hold the camera for me and do the camera for me, but still I had to edit it. So now being good at editing became a part of it, and graphic design and making the flyers, and just I had to learn to do it all, and not just because I had to, but because I wanted to. This is what I wanted to do. And I just spent so many years as a kid, it felt like forever, but just locked in on music. And then when I got to college, I was going to have to audition and do an instrument to get into the music program. And I could have did that, could have finessed my way around to the piano, but I was like, I've been toying with video and doing video. I want to really lock in and learn something that I have not yet, that I haven't done as much. So that's when I switched my major to videography and really started learning the tools of that, learning what exposure and what a shutter speed was. Before we just turning on the camera and just letting it go. Learning to do the craft the right way. And as I got deeper into that, I loved it. So when I graduated college, that's when I really started Stro Studios. But I needed a job, and I come from, family business. My grandmother always had, since I've been born, she was working in accounting, had her own business. So she was like, hey, until you get your own thing going, you can come and work for me. I worked there for about 4 or 5 years, and I loved it. And at the same time, I always knew there were things that I was picking up and I was learning. And she always hoped that one of us throughout the family that's been working there and coming through would really pick some up. But, my grandmother's old school, so she had to see it to believe it. And at the beginning of this year, she retired. And that gave me more time to now really lock in on the Stro Studios. When she retired, I had a little bit of money, but eventually the money starts drying up. And that's what brought me to now, where I was like, all right, man, got to make some changes, got to stop smoking, got to stop drinking, because it ain't just me no more doing music and mixtapes. I got a whole wife and kids and family to provide for. So it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep squandering this time, or are you going to have to go and get another job and work somewhere else for someone else and just be maybe internally depressed and trying to figure it out? Or are you going to figure it out? And that's when I said, you know what? There is no backup plan. I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to lock in. And ever since then, it's been working out. And I hope it keeps working out, but I know it's going to keep working out, because I ain't going to look back. I'm going to keep looking forward and keep going. So this show will get better. I'll get better. But I can tell you one thing. Ain't no backup plan.